Back to NFL Live, the Pittsburgh Steelers taking full advantage of OTAs, 10 voluntary sessions. Cam Hayward not there. Doesn't appear to be a big level of concern in that area. All eyes on the quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Our Steelers reporter Brooke Pryor was out at camp today. Brooke, what can you tell us about the Steelers' plans for Fields?
Hannah, Justin Fields poured cold water on the idea that he could be a kick returner for the Pittsburgh Steelers, saying earlier this week that it was funny to him how viral comments from teammate Jaylen Warren went when Warren brought up the time that special teams coach Danny Smith suggested they could use the quarterback as a kick returner. Fields said that's not what he's in Pittsburgh to do, and Smith was just using him as an example of guys who could be asked to do non-traditional things for this team. There is one way, though, that Fields could be used in a non-traditional role, and that's perhaps in a two-quarterback system. Fellow quarterback Russell Wilson said that he would welcome adding Fields in a two-quarterback system because having two dynamic playmakers and quarterbacks is a good thing, and he said it could strike fear into the heart of a lot of defenses. The quarterbacks are already using a two-quarterback system well, taking their offensive line out to dinner at the Capitol Grill together a couple weeks ago.
I love that. Bug, I imagine what you just said in our last segment, you would have loved that as well and ordered a nice big juicy hamburger. But this two-quarterback system, does this whet your appetite at all? What do you think when you hear that about Pittsburgh?
Yeah, no, not at all, Hannah. I'm not in favor of the two-quarterback system. We haven't seen it much in the National Football League. I saw it in college football with Steve Spurrier, shuffling quarterbacks in and out. It didn't work well then. I just think that position is one of leadership and one of being able to command the huddle, and having a guy go in and out, I don't think it's going to work. Now, if you're going to create a small package for, say, Justin Fields, if Russell Wilson wins the job, and maybe on third down, maybe in running situations, you want to bring Justin Fields in, okay, I could buy that. But if we're talking about a true two-quarterback system where we're rotating guys in and out every 5 or 6 plays or every other series, I just don't think that can work in the National Football League.
I agree, Bug. I agree 100%. And I don't think they're going to need a two-quarterback system. The only two-quarterback system that they're going to have here is Russell's going to probably start the season, and then what's going to wind up happening is Justin Fields is going to take over probably halfway through the season. Because this offense is tailor-made for exactly what he needs, I believe, to take his game to another level. I think you will see Arthur Smith, the new offensive coordinator, get back to being the Arthur Smith of old. He'll be the Arthur Smith who took a guy like Ryan Tannehill, who they put into the lineup down in Tennessee, and took Marcus Mariota out of there. And next thing you know, Ryan Tannehill is a top 5 thrower in the NFL. Why? Because they run the football, they change the launch points, they use play action pass, they use the dynamic running ability of the quarterback to their advantage, but it's just one quarterback. And the best runner on the field for Pittsburgh will be Justin Fields. And Justin Fields is going to take his game to another level anyway. So for me, yeah, it's going to be two quarterbacks. Is this not going to be a two-quarterback system like we're talking about?
Here's the thing I'm going to push back on. What have you seen from Justin Fields to make you think that Justin Fields can come into Pittsburgh and do that? Because I haven't seen that, Lewis. We saw flashes of Justin running the football when he was like top 10 in the league in rushing, but that position is about throwing the football and distributing the football. What have you seen from him to make you think he can do that in Pittsburgh? Because I haven't seen that.
I've seen enough flashes to believe. Now, look, I understand. I'm one of those people who says all the time, flash players get coaches fired because you keep thinking you can get it over and over again, and you can't. I've seen enough from him to believe this. I believe that Arthur Smith, look, I like Luke Getsy, okay? I like him. Luke Getsy is not Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith will take care of him. The run game combined with the play-action pass game will take Justin's game to a much more consistent another level. And when you combine that with his running ability, which will just be a supplementary part of the offense, look, this offense is going to be legit because they're going to have one of the best offensive lines in football too. Let's not forget that.
I think Boog's right that Justin Fields is still to some extent a projection. But right now, at this time, so is Russell Wilson. You're projecting his ability to get back to what he was earlier in his career with Seattle. The last 2 years, he has not been anything close to that. He can say all he wants. It'd be nice to have two dynamic playmakers on the field, but he hasn't been one in quite a while. So I think if you're the Steelers and you're projecting what Justin Fields could possibly be versus Wilson becoming what he used to be, I know which one I'd rather bet on.
Well, we have a lot of time to talk about that, guys, but we're almost out of time on this show. Before we go, one more thing with Micah Parsons in the building last night when the Wolves. Welcome to NFL Live. OTAs in full swing around the league, and we have reports from Steelers and Patriots practice on their new quarterbacks. Also, the latest on Aaron Rodgers' return from injury and the Jets' plans for that offense. Plus, a lot of changes on defense in Baltimore. We're going to dive into some concerns for the Ravens. As we welcome you to NFL Live, I'm Hannah Storm alongside Booger McFarland, Louis Riddick, and Dan Graziano. We got the full NFL Brain Trust in today. Can't wait to hear their thoughts on this, the JETS Jets. And their head coach, Robert Saleh, who, as you know, is a defensive head coach, incorporating offense into his regimen. And he says it's actually year 2 of the process of understanding the vision.
For me, last year was year 1, so there was a lot of, even, I talked about it last week in my press conference, a lot of learning even for me. First time I had been a part of an offense where the quarterback had such a voice. And so a lot of it was me absorbing and along with everyone else and learning this new system. It's year 2. It's this natural evolution. We've got a really good grasp of the offense. And so just trying to provide some insight from a defensive perspective, just to understand what they're trying to accomplish and just trying to provide some insight.
All right, so Graz, this doesn't mean obviously he's not going to tell Nathaniel Hackett certain plays to call and things like that, but it is interesting nonetheless. What's behind this?
Well, look, last year the offense fell apart completely once Aaron Rodgers got hurt, which was right away, and it never recovered. So I think when the Jets got to the offseason, the thought was, let's not just assume, Aaron coming back will make everything better, because A, what if we're wrong, and B, what if he gets hurt again? So I think there were a lot of discussions about, what can we do to make sure that we don't have a repeat of last year in terms of how poorly the offense played. And they didn't make changes on the offensive coaching staff. Nathaniel Hackett's still the coordinator. But I think one of the things they came up with was Saleh, who's the head coach, who gets the blame if things go wrong, will be more of a presence, I think, in the offensive meeting rooms. I think that's probably the form this ends up taking.
All right, so let's envision this, Louis. Saleh and the offensive meeting rooms, the potential for a lot of cooks in the kitchen there. What do you make of this approach?
Look, I think Coach Saleh understands what they're up against this year. I think he understands the importance and the urgency that this organization is going to have put on it in terms of winning, in terms of the bottom line. And I think, look, a lot of times defensive coaches can give offensive coordinators and offenses overall a different perspective in terms of, hey, look, what you're doing right there, we can you're tipping your hand. We can really, clamp down on those kind of route combinations, that kind of run blocking scheme with ease. Maybe if you tweak it this way, maybe it works a little bit better here, works a little bit better there. So, look, that's why, to me, a lot of times when people kind of really look down upon defensive head coaches in the NFL, I kind of scoff at that because they can give a very good perspective in terms of, how they feel that offense is going to work against the defenses it's going to go against, because that's what their specialty is. And I think that, combined with the fact that he understands, again, given all the additions that they've made this year, just how important it is to win this year, and Aaron Rodgers has alluded to the same thing. He doesn't play well, probably everybody's going to be gone. So if you're Robert Saleh, you're probably saying, hey, look, well, being that my quarterback said that, let me get on over here and see what they're doing and make sure I can help them out in some way.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Louis. I think when you look at Robert Saleh, he understands point blank, if they don't win this year, they're gone. I mean, they're going to clean house. And I think when you have a defense that plays as good as they played last year and an offense that didn't get to 21 points in several games, I'm going to spend a lot of time in that room and that side of the ball also to make sure that these guys are coaching everything right, that they're installing everything right, that everybody is paying attention, because if our offense can pull their side of the bargain and our defense just plays status quo, they can win a lot of football games. They understand that it's about protecting Aaron Rodgers. And then how can I feature Breece Hall? The offensive line, if they stay healthy, then Aaron Rodgers will be able to make some plays down the field. But make no mistake about it. If you're the head coach, if you're the GM, if you're anybody in that organization, you are pinpointing and putting a keen eye on this offense. Because if this offense can hold their side of the bargain, this team can compete in the AFC East.
Yeah, and I think, just to add this point in here, Hannah, is the fact that, look, I think the most crucial position group, besides the quarterback, obviously, on the Jets this year is without a doubt the offensive line. It's going to really be that rotation of three guys, on the edge, Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, and the number 1 pick, Ola Fashanu at tackle. Those are the guys that are going to be in the spotlight. Because, look, at least one of those three, one of the top two right there in Tyron and Morgan have to stay on the football field. They have to stay healthy at least 15, 16 games, and Ola is going to have to develop quickly because they need that protection. 30th in pass block win rate last year. That's just not going to get it. That's not going to allow Aaron Rodgers, coming off an Achilles, to play 17 weeks. It's just not. And if you're Robert Saleh and defense is your specialty and where he made his name and given where he has come from, namely San Francisco before that, and what he has right now at his disposal in terms of pass rush, you can best believe that position group in particular is where I would, if I were him, I'd be putting my eyes on immediately and saying, hey, look, listen, man, that's not going to cut it. Because this is how teams are going to attack these protections and attack these individuals. So we better have this locked down, Nathaniel, because if not, you're going to be looking for a job. I'm going to be looking for a job. And Aaron Rodgers is going to ride off into the sunset with his multi-millions that he has.
Right, and if you separate Nathaniel Hackett from Aaron Rodgers, as he has been the last 2 seasons, one with the Jets and one with the Broncos, we're talking about bottom 5 scoring offenses. It'll be fascinating. But listen, we cannot finish this discussion without a gem today from Quinnen Williams. Take a listen.
This is going to be Aaron's 20th year. Could you just...
20 years?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Aaron, 20 years in the NFL?
Yeah. Could you just...
Man. Ain't that running back, the number 0 is 20 years old?
Yeah.
So he been in the NFL as long as he been alive. That's crazy, huh?
Yeah, this just. By the way, number 0 is rookie running back Braylon Allen, and he was born in 2004, and he is only 20 years old. So. Pretty realistic math there by Quinnen Williams. We shall, hence we're talking about the offensive line, right, Lewis? Okay, let's move on to the New England Patriots and the NFL's 30th ranked offense last year. Plenty of inconsistent quarterback play. They bring back the very steady Jacoby Brissett, of course, and they draft Drake May. Fully guaranteed contract he got this week. Here's Gerard May on what he's seen out of May so far.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's taking advantage of the opportunities that he gets. And, look, we're all being evaluated. I'm being evaluated. The players are being evaluated. And, hopefully everyone's open to feedback. My message is, it's not how many opportunities, it's what you do with the opportunities that you get. And, look, going back to the competition part of it, the better you do on a day-after-day basis, not only on the field but also in the classroom, the more reps you'll get going forward.
So our Mike Reese is out at Patriots practice today, and look at this. He was set up on the hill overlooking practice with a towel, sunscreen, water, and bucket hat. I mean, that is some veteran preparation right there. Mike, it's going to be a good day. Mike, apparently unsunburned, properly sunscreened. Was it a good day for Drake May too, Mike?
Hannah, I appreciate the reference to the bucket hat, but I'm going to put this in the back pocket because I wouldn't want to scare everyone on camera with the bucket hat on. But I do want to tell you, the big story here from practice remains the Patriots are taking it slow with Drake May. When all of the quarterbacks were on the field together, May is still number 3, behind Jacoby Brissett, behind Bailey Zappi. But you heard Gerard Mayo mention it's about taking advantage of opportunities. And within this practice today, here's what I saw from Drake May. It couldn't have started much worse for him. A bad overthrow on his first throw. Then they had to rehuddle on the next play. And then he had another incompletion on a botched play. But what did he do after that? I had him 14 of his next 16. Seemed to get it going, Hannah. And I asked Jacoby Brissett after practice what he's noticed from May in terms of his response to adversity. And he said that stood out to him from day one.
All right, thanks so much, Mike. So back with my trio here. Booger, they really have a luxury there with Jacoby Brissett, right? So theoretically, they can take their time with May. What looks like success to you in his first season? When would you like to see him start?
Well, first of all, I don't think the Patriots are in any position that they're going to challenge for the AFC East this year. So there should be no hurry to get Drake May on the field. And if you're this coaching staff, you want to make sure that in 25 he's ready to go. So at some point this season, preferably in the last quarter of the season, maybe game with 2 or 3 or 4 games left, you get this young man some experience, some tape that you can evaluate going into the offseason. But under no circumstances, and I do mean no circumstances, Lewis and Graz, are we going to put this man out there and play meaningful football early in the season? He's not ready mechanically. I don't think he's going to be ready from a playbook standpoint. And so if you're building toward the future and you're this Patriots organization, part of understanding where you're going is knowing where you are and knowing who you are. Be honest with yourself. They're not a good football team right now. So let's grow the football team, let's develop some pieces, and let's develop this young quarterback the right way, not for this year, but for 25 and beyond.
Yeah, I think you let Drake kind of determine exactly when that time is. And, look, if he shows an ability to go ahead and pick up this offense and really start to outperform guys like Jacoby Brissett and Bailey Zappi, then you kind of just let the chips fall where they may. And I think that's going to be totally dependent upon Drake, his ability to absorb the offense, his ability to really gel with Alex Van Pelt, the new offensive coordinator, who you see right there on your screen. And that's going to be critical. That relationship, that ability to go ahead and take what you're learning in the classroom, apply it to the practice field. But I think even more when you kind of pan out and you kind of look at this from a 30,000-foot view, I think really it starts on this offensive line too now as well, because that is where I think if you're Gerard Mayo and you're Elliott Wolf, who's in charge of personnel up there, you've got to make sure inside out and front to back that things are set before you do put him out there, Boog. And I do agree with you. And especially on this left side of the offensive line, they may be starting 2 rookies. They may be starting a 3rd and 4th rounder in Caden Wallace from Penn State, Layden Robinson from Texas A&M. You got to make sure those things are straight. These young wide receivers, Javon Baker, Jalen Polk, you got to make sure Drake gets reps with them. Make sure that you are, while you're planning for the future, you're also saying, hey, look, is the future now? Is the future sooner than we expect? So I think you let this all play itself out. But, yeah, there are a lot of moving parts, man. A lot of moving parts with this football team you have to consider. And you probably – patience is something you probably want to practice here for sure.
Yeah, look, the Patriots are excited about Drake May. That's why they drafted him where they drafted him. There's no question about it. They are not ruling out the possibility that he, and by the way, that cast around him that you're talking about, shows enough as the summer goes along that maybe he does play early in the year. They have higher hopes, for example, for those young offensive linemen. I think a lot of people do. So it's an evaluation process. But remember, the Patriots signed Jacoby Brissett before they knew what they were going to do in the draft. They were picking 3rd. There was talks about them trading back. They didn't know exactly who was going to go 1 and 2. So they are comfortable playing Jacoby Brissett as long as Drake May needs. And I don't think we should expect them to shy away from that.
And let's keep in mind, too, Drake May is only 21 years old, played those 2 years of college football. I can't believe, Lewis, that you missed your opportunity for a Pitt shout-out talking about Alex Van Pelt.
Yeah, you know what, Hannah, I get enough of those, man. Don't worry, I'll work it in at some point here, and just pan up to my helmets right here.
There is no question you get enough Pitt on television.
It's all good.
I know. I just saw that go right by. I saw the thought bubble, though. It was there.
Boog, I'm going to send you some gear, though. I'm going to send you some gear, man. I'm going to send you some gear. You look good in Pitt gear. You look good.
All right.
The Niners receiver a lot of people might have been expecting. Juwan Jennings, a restricted free agent who hadn't signed the tender the team had given him yet, agrees to a 2-year contract. Our Adam Schefter reporting it's worth up to $15.4 million. So that'll bring Jennings into the fold as the 49ers continue to work on a potential contract extension with star receiver Brandon Ayuk that should cost a great deal more. Cowboys dealing with their own contract situations. Micah Parsons, Dak Prescott, and CeeDee Lamb all sort of in line for big money extensions. Of those 3, I think the one to watch in the short term is Lamb. He is the one who has 1 year left on his deal. Prescott does too, obviously, but that's a different story. Lamb is not at OTAs. He's trying to work something out with the Cowboys. Discussions on this expected to pick up here relatively soon. Wouldn't be surprised to see a CeeDee Lamb deal, highly paid wide receiver, coming this summer. Matthew Stafford has expressed some disappointment with his contract with the Rams, making $31 million this year. Rams have some incentive to talk to him about it because his cap number is $49.5 million, and they'd obviously like to get that down if they can. But Stafford has 3 years left on his contract, a little bit of a tricky situation with the Rams. And the news yesterday, Houston, the Texans agreeing on an extension with wide receiver Nico Collins. The Texans wide receiver room getting a little more crowded this offseason with the addition of Stephon Diggs, but Collins was an outstanding player for them last year. They think he's a big part of their future. They signed him to a 3-year contract extension that reflects that.
Yeah, Graz, as you mentioned, coming off a great season, nearly 1,300 receiving yards last season, with ranked 8th in the NFL. His new teammate Stephon Diggs was not far behind him, and despite missing the final 5 games of the season due to a season-ending leg injury, don't forget, Tank Dell had over 700 receiving yards, which makes the Texans, get this, the only team in the NFL with 3 wide receivers who had at least 700 receiving yards last season. Head coach D'Amico Ryans had this to say about his talented trio.
We want to put defenses in binds. I think with those 3 guys, it allows us to do that because they're so different, right? And they can all do different things. But at the end of the day, they are all explosive finishers with the football. Right, and that's what makes those guys great players. They can win on 3rd down, and they can finish and get in the end zone. And that's what we look for at all skill positions on offense. So having 3 receivers there, it definitely opens up the playbook for us, and it puts a lot of stress on the defense.
Yeah, but this is so exciting. So I guess maybe not if you're on the other side of the ball, but offensively, what does this look like to you with this particular trio in H-Town?
I mean, it looked like they should go out and dominate, Hannah, especially when you look at the premise that you make your biggest leap from a performance standpoint from year 1 to year 2. So let's apply that to the quarterback, C.J. Stroud. How good was he last year? He was unreal. He should be even better this year. Now you bring in Stephon Diggs to go with Nico Collins, who you just paid $24 million a year, and the most explosive guy was Tank Dell. They should be outstanding. Here's my one concern, guys. My one concern is not the 2 guys that were there. Because Nico Collins and Tank Dell, they understand. They've been in the system. But when you bring a guy like Stephon Diggs in, and let's be honest, Stephon Diggs was a little bit of a problem in Minnesota. He was a little bit of a problem in Buffalo. How long do we think before he's a little bit of a problem in Houston if he's not getting the ball? That's my only concern. On paper, this looks phenomenal, Graz and Lewis, on paper. But if he's not getting the touches that he's used to getting from Kirk Cousins, from a Josh Allen, how soon does Stephon Diggs lash out? Because the chemistry on that team is the one thing that you cannot corrupt for a young team. Those guys are all in, and D'Amico Ryans has that ear. You don't want to bring an outsider in, which is what they've done. And they've taken a chance to try to get to the next level. So, Graz, can Stephon Diggs step up and be what he didn't do in Minnesota or Buffalo, and that is a team player?
Right. Well, I mean, it is worth noting that, like, you know, for most of the time he was in those places, he was highly productive. And there were flare-ups, obviously. They've been well chronicled, and it's the main reason he's not in those places anymore. But remember, the Texans did something after they acquired Stephon Diggs. They adjusted his contract. So there's only 1 year left on it. So he has a great deal of incentive to perform at a high level, to put, you know, to leave whatever issues that might have existed in previous stops behind him, and to give it, you know, everything he's got for this year, because, you know, he'll be 31 in November. He's probably going to want one more big, you know, relatively big free agent payday, and, you know, I think he probably wants to try and win the Super Bowl, and Houston's suddenly a place where people feel like they can go and gives them a shot to do that. So I think it seems like a mutually beneficial pairing, especially when you consider the state of the contract as they amended it.
Yeah, very savvy move, by the way, by Nick Caserio, one of many, starting with the drafting of C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson, and then building upon the success of last season. Lewis, coming from the business side of football, as you do, just kind of lay out the big picture as Nick Caserio has built this team.
Yeah, he's done as good a job, Hannah, as you could possibly do. I mean, this organization has nailed it with the hiring, starting with the hiring of D'Amico Ryans. And D'Amico Ryans hiring a guy like Bobby Slowick, who no one really had any idea how he would turn out in terms of being a leader and a play caller for a rookie quarterback who was second overall in C.J. Stroud. I mean, those are big time hits right out of the gate. And then when you bring a guy in like C.J. Stroud, who was able to get this offense up and running, at the direction of Bobby Sloak, and get guys like Tank Dell, and Nico Collins on the same page, and Dalton Schultz on the same page, and then you bring in a Stephon Diggs to supplement that. And, when you continue to add in the draft with a guy like Cade Stover, who you drafted in the 4th round out of Ohio State, to kind of make their tight end room even better, and you bring in Joe Mixon. And then on the defensive side, you see these guys that they have on that side of the ball too now with Will Anderson and Danico Autry and Daniil Hunter. And then I'll tell you what, here's another name. Just remember this name as we, run these clips of Stephon Diggs, and we should run those clips. But just remember this name. Remember the name Azeez Al-Shire, who they signed from Tennessee, who was in San Francisco with DeMeco Ryans. We talked to Azeez last year before the Monday night game between Tennessee and Miami when he was with the Titans. There isn't a more respected guy in the NFL right at the command and control center at linebacker. And Azeez just absolutely adores DeMeco. Their leadership structure in Houston is rock solid. That's why, Boog, for me, I have no doubt that, look, Stephon will fall in line. He will fall in line because if not, he's going to have a whole bunch of alphas in his ear immediately. Don't mess up what we're doing down here. Go ahead and get yours, but fall in line because we've got something special, and you have to give Nick Caserio a lot of credit for all of that.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I totally understand what you're saying, Boog, but it's very intentional, not just the skill piece, but the leadership piece. Caserio's been very intentional about putting those players there on both sides of the ball, and thank goodness Slowick came back. Right? That's time to get defensive.
Oh, wow.
Two of our defensive guys, they're ready.
Wow.
They are ready to defend themselves. Let's go to the Packers. New defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley inherits a very talented defense. 11 players, former 1st or 2nd round draft picks, meaning Green Bay, theoretically, could field an entire starting defense of 1st or 2nd round picks. In addition, of course, to being talented, they're very, very young. Preston Smith is the only one of these players who's actually over the age of 28. It's so much fun. Let's see it again as we reveal the two. Did either of you did you ever do karate or martial arts, Lewis?
No, I didn't, but it makes me want to. It makes me want. I'm a big UFC guy. I love full contact sports, but no, that's pretty good Photoshop, though. I like that.
Well, just the fact that you could wear, just the fact that you could wear your karate robe and have your robe undone probably makes you want to do it, because you can show your chest hair. So I'm sure that's what you're leaning into right now.
There
you know what,
go.
man?
The two-button, our favorite two-button, unbuttoned person.
Man. I just don't. I don't understand the hate I get for this, but you know what? I'm going to take it, though. I'm going to take it.
It's all in love. It is. All I have to say to you is patience, young grasshopper. Okay, do you get that reference? Karate Kid, there you go. All right, you two. Let's talk about the Packers. Okay, Lewis, they really made a concerted effort to shore up their defense, and they needed to. How do you assess their moves?
Look, I said during the draft, Hannah, that I thought that Brian Gutekunst, their general manager, did as good a job this offseason as any GM could possibly do in terms of continuing to build out this defense. Look, the drafting of Edgerrin Cooper at the top of the 2nd round, the drafting of Javon Bullard right there from Georgia to go along with Xavier McKinney, who they signed in free agency, those are absolute stud GM of the year type moves. That's what they are. Edgerrin Cooper is going to be a Fred Warner type of player. He's a 3-down linebacker that can blitz, run, cover, tackle. He can do it all. He can absolutely do it all. He will be a star from the very first game. Xavier McKinney is one of the best safeties in the NFL. I mean, they stole him from the Giants. I mean, this absolutely stole. I mean, how do you let Xavier McKinney get out of there? And Javon Bullard, look, if you watched Georgia's secondary last year, Georgia's secondary, man for man, is best secondary in college football. They have nothing but studs. Javon Bullard is a heat-seeking missile that can also pick the ball off and take it the other way, 90 yards with the speed he has. Brian Gutekunst killed it. Rashawn Gary's already there. Preston Smith already there. I didn't know that they had that many 1st and 2nd rounders when you kind of add it all up. But I'm telling you, the Packers are loaded. This is a loaded football team.
They are very loaded, and you're right, Lewis. Talent acquisition has never been their fault. Like, they've done a really good job of it with all the first and second round picks. But guess what? Some of those first round picks they had last year when they couldn't stop the run, they give up 130 yards against the run. So now Joe Barry, the old defensive coordinator, is out. You bring in Jeff Hafley because they want to be more aggressive, and they got to get better in the front seven. I get it. They got a lot of talent. They got a lot of guys that look pretty coming off the bus. But when are they going to step up and be more physical in the front seven? When are they going to step up and stop the run? They're going to have to make sure they take care of the run so that new acquisition and that secondary can be ball hawks like you talked about them being. But because if you can't stop the run, nobody's going to throw the football. And Green Bay's defense has religiously, over the last couple years, not been able to stop the run. So he's done a tremendous job from a talent standpoint. Now, can the coaching staff, namely the new defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley, turn all this talent into a defensive unit? That'll be the key for Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean, they allowed 128 rushing yards a game last season. That was 5th worst in the NFL. Not sustainable. All right, we are not done getting defensive. Y'all know what Chuck Norris said. There is no finish line. We are far from finished. Let's talk about Baltimore's defense. Dominant last season when they became the first team since the merger to lead the NFL in scoring, sacks, and takeaways. But they've undergone significant changes this offseason, beginning with former defensive coordinator Mike McDonald. He left to become the Seahawks head coach. Your D-line coach, Anthony Weaver, he's gone. Your DB coach, Denard Wilson, he's gone too. Everybody moving out and moving up as Baltimore also lost key contributors. Patrick Queen is gone, Jadeveon Clowney, Geno Stone. Oh my, booger. So the Ravens promoted 31-year-old Zach Orr to be their new defensive coordinator. So they do go in-house. But boy, are they missing a lot of pieces. How concerned are you?
Well, typically you'd be concerned, especially in a league that's built off talent. But there's something in that building called play like a Raven, and there's a standard and a status in which everybody in that building is held to. When you look at when you understand how they're going to do things, even though they're missing guys, you got Matabike that's going to be up there. He's going to lead the charge up front, a guy who they paid. They're going to play because they have a certain mentality that you have to have inside that building. I do understand that Mike McDonald is gone, but as long as they can get their secondary to play to a higher level, I have no doubt that this defensive unit is going to continue to play. They may not have some of the names that we're used to, Patrick Queen and some of the others, but I think that building, more than any other building outside of maybe Pittsburgh in the National Football League, you don't concern yourself with the names. You concern yourself because you know the coaching staff is going to get them to play a certain way, Lewis.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you this, though. Look, John Harbaugh told us last year he thought that on the defensive side of the football, he had multiple head coaching candidates, all right? And so obviously Mike McDonald gets one. He thought Zach Orr was going to be a future head coach. He thinks Anthony Weaver, who's the new DC down in Miami, should be a head coach. Denard Wilson, who's now the DC in Tennessee, who is the passing game coordinator, is an absolute stud. He will be a head coach here soon, too, in the next 2-3 years. But they still do have some fantastic players. Look, in the secondary, they have Kyle Hamilton, who's already one of the best safeties in the league. And they drafted a guy in the first round out of Clemson this year named Nate Wiggins, who I think, pound for pound with his size, his length, and his speed, when you talk about play like a Raven, that's what he does. He has got blazing speed, great ball skills, great short area quickness and finishing ability. And he's a guy who just competes like just exactly the way you would expect Baltimore Raven-type defensive backs to compete. So, yeah, I'm concerned because there's been a huge brain, kind of like football intelligence, brain drain kind of out of Baltimore. But John Harbaugh's one of the best coaches in the NFL, and he'll make it work.
I think that's the key thing, right? Because there's turnover in the personnel side of it too, right? The player personnel side, 3 new offensive linemen as starters this year, and on the defensive side, you lose Patrick Queen, you lose Geno Stone. The Ravens are very good at bringing people into their culture and getting them to play the way they want them to play. The other thing they're very good at is sort of late window free agency. It seems like they're always able to find an edge rusher or two kind of kicking around on the market in May, June, July. So keep an eye out for the Ravens to continue to be active to maybe sign some veterans to fill in some of those holes.
Yeah, like they did for Clowney really late last year. Yep. Justin Simmons is still out there if you're looking in that secondary. Just a thought. Thank you, gentlemen. Coming up, star wideouts Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, both not at Cincinnati's OTAs. How concerned should Bengals fans be? Lewis is some news around the league. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase absent once again from Bengals OTAs. Both seeking new deals. Higgins has requested a trade. Here's Zach Taylor on the receivers.
I think that they'll get the work in at the necessary time, and please, we have a high turnout for voluntary workouts. I told the guys, I understand it's voluntary. I appreciate them showing up. The guys that don't are still working hard elsewhere, and they'll be back at the right times. And so, and the beauty is we know those guys, we know what they're about, and that they'll be ready and focused when it's time to come back.
Lewis, the Bengals have said they're not interested in trading Higgins. How ideally would you like to see them approach this situation?
Look, I think Jamar has to be the primary focus, and he will be the guy who probably gets taken care of first. T has been franchised. Look, T is a 1, and I think he wants to be paid as a 1. I think Cincinnati will try everything they can to try and get him in the fold. But if you can't, then you have to look to move him and obtain maximum value. And look, they have kind of planned for the future here. Look at the drafting of a guy like Jermaine Burton out of Alabama, who by all accounts has looked fantastic so far and has tremendous upside. I think they've kind of planned for every scenario here.
All right, let's check in with one of the best receiving rooms in the NFL, looking to follow up on a record-setting rookie year. Puka Nacua is working out with longtime star Cooper Kupp.
Cooper's up there early mornings for sure. Cooper, if he was leaving somewhere out of town, we were going an extra hour early. We wasn't like, oh, we're going to miss our workout. He said, I'm leaving at 7:30, be here at 5:30, or be here at 5. I was out at the Super Bowl, experiencing that for the first time that Super Bowl week, and then it was like he texted me Thursday before the game, like, hey, I'm starting up back on Monday morning. I was like, guys, I'll see you guys back. I'll see you guys. Everybody come out to California and stuff. So it was a blessing, but some tough days on his lawn for sure.
What have you changed for the positive, whether it's nutritional or workout?
If I'm driving by and I see Burger King, Jack in the Box, McDonald's was my spot for me, I'm like, I was gonna stop. It was a convenience thing just for me. I was like, oh, I don't want to be at home. I'm tired. I'm not gonna sit and make a meal. But I just realized, like, man, that extra 5 minutes it takes to either make something at home or just put the stuff on the grill real quick, it makes the food made honestly taste a little better. I know I'm a big fan of McDonald's, but man, when you get to make food on your own, there's something about being the chef of your own food that feels really good.
I love him. Booger, what fast food did you have to give up coming into the NFL?
Oh, I didn't give up any. That's probably why I didn't last as long as I should have lasted, because I just kept eating it, Hannah.
Did you ever chef it up for yourself, Boog? Did you ever cook like Puka?
Yeah, listen, I get it. The guys are worried about nutrition now, and here's the thing. I was a sucker for hamburgers, Hannah. Like, I never was a French fry guy or a pizza guy. I really don't like either one of those. But if you give me a good hamburger, put 2 patties on it, some cheese, bacon, mayo, man, I mean, you got Boog will do anything you want to do if you can give me that.
You are not alone. I noticed In-N-Out Burger was not on that list for Puka, so that's a good thing. All right, let's go to Minnesota, where they drafted J.J. McCarthy in the first round. You know, obviously, they have Sam Darnold there. Brand new quarterback room. Here's Josh McCown, their QB coach, on the challenges.
Time, like we don't have enough of it. We need more and more, like, just to be able to be on the field with them, and then for them to spend time with those guys throwing, and so it just depends on where you are with your team build or with your players. But like when you're in a situation that we are, where you got a couple of new players, they need to feel the routes from these guys, and they need to feel how Jordan's going to break or cut on a route, and sometimes it's multiple times.
Hey, our old buddy here, Josh McCown, getting some camera time. I love it. Graz, it really might be helpful to have JJ there. What's the latest with Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, the sides have continued to talk, and the Vikings have been steadfast in saying they want to get a deal done on an extension with Justin Jefferson, their star receiver. The issue is Jefferson, he's wondering if he could be the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. Right now, that's Nick Bosa at about $34 million a year. And if the Vikings are willing to go that high, how much higher, and where can he put this? So it's the kind of thing. Bosa didn't sign until very, very late last offseason. These kinds of deals can take a lot of time. Vikings are determined to do it. I think it gets done. The question is at what sort of astronomical number it finally happens.
Yeah, and how much is guaranteed and in what years. Okay, still ahead, we'll have a live report.